So are we ready to go, Ms. Cusack?
Yes, sir. We're ready.
Awesome. Well, I just wanted to call this meeting to order and just remind folks that if you are a member of the public, and I don't see anybody here, so if someone does pop in, just keep your mic and camera off. But we'll start this in a good way, of course, and acknowledge that we are doing our work today on the unceded intertraditional territory of the Katzie, Kwantlen, Athakwe, and Semiahmoo First Nations. So we do have an agenda in front of us here. Would anybody like to adopt it? So moved by Councillor White, seconded by Councillor Wallace. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? So that's carried unanimously. We're on to the consent agenda. Is there any changes we'd like to make to that? So seeing none, would anybody like to move the consent agenda? Moved by Councillor Mack, seconded by Councillor James. Further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? So that's carried unanimously. We do have another council meeting on November 18th and then another one in December 2nd, in which we should be back in the council chamber. Is there any council advisory body updates from anyone here? Hi, Councillor James, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to mention to everyone, I sit on the Community Council for the Gateway of Hope, and they are starting their kettle campaign, which, as we know, is a huge portion of their funding. So if you or anyone out there is interested in putting together a team or doing it yourself, please just call the Gateway of Hope. I don't have the number directly in front of me, but they would love to assign you to a kettle in our community. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you so much, Councillor James. Anything else from a member of council? So seeing none, then we can go to administrative reports. So this is really a housekeeping matter to remove some outmoded policies. So we do have a recommendation that the following council policies be repealed: CO7, CO16, CO20, CO36, and CO55. Would anybody like to move the recommendation? So moved by Councillor White, seconded by Councillor James. Any further discussion? I will say some of it includes things like we will fax the news media on a Friday, and I don't think we've used fax machines for the last 10 years, so it's just good housekeeping stuff to do. So seeing that there's no further discussion, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? So that's carried unanimously. We're on to the motions and notices of motions here. We do have some annual appointments to make here. So the first recommendation is for FVRL. So the recommendation is that Councillor Rosemary Wallace be appointed to the Fraser Valley Regional Library Board for 2025, and that Councillor Delaney Mack be appointed as the alternate. Would anybody like to move that? Moved by Councillor James, seconded by Councillor Albrecht. Any further discussion? So I'm seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? So that's carried unanimously. And we have the Metro Vancouver 2025 appointment, that Councillor Paul Albrecht be appointed to the Metro Vancouver Board of Directors for 2025, and that Councillor Rosemary Wallace be appointed as the alternate. Would anybody like to move that? Moved by Councillor White, seconded by Councillor James. Any further discussion? So I am seeing none. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? So that's carried unanimously. Now we have the item, which is council advisory bodies appointments, which is like 2 pages. I don't prefer to read it unless someone wants me to read all the appointments verbatim. But if anybody would like to move, and if council is unanimously comfortable with that, it'll be moved by Councillor Wallace and seconded by Councillor Albrecht. People are fine with as presented in our agenda. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Wallace, please go ahead.
Just for history's sake, maybe you can explain through the mayor in regards to our appointments. I know that, for instance, there used to be a community day committee, and it used to be a Christmas parade committee, but it's I forget what it was last year. But just explain in regards to why we don't have council representation, and those committees would also have members of community being involved, and I'm sure they are still involved, but maybe if you could just explain to the public, that would be great. Thank you.
Absolutely. So we used to have committees, and council went through an exercise last year, the year before, really shifting some things around, and we switched some of those committees to internal working groups. So they're not minuted, they're staff working groups, councils, free to attend, and we always send out a good word for Magic of Christmas or for Community Day. But it isn't a committee of council at this point. So that's where that's been just removed, just from a kind of housekeeping. And it's, we've come from back in the day where it was council rolling up their sleeves and doing work to basically a staff driven thing with council input. So that's why that's been changed. And then there was also, and thank you for reminding me, there was like the Human Dignity Coalition, and I know that the scheduling just never worked out, period. So for anybody, so that one we just removed for now. But if there's a time in which they ask us to be back in everybody's schedules work, we'll consider that. And I believe those are the changes we saw this year. And then there was just a few folks where their appointments were adjusted, as you saw. Ms. Cusack, did I miss anything from there?
No, I believe you've covered it, Mayor Powell.
Perfect. Thank you. Councillor Wallace, is that a good explanation?
Yeah, thank you so much through the mayor for explaining that.
Awesome. Thank you so much for reminding me. Is there any further discussion from council? Councillor Mack, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Pahal. Through the mayor, I just wanted to address your comments about the Human Dignity Coalition and the schedule. I would be one of the members who, unfortunately, the schedule just doesn't work with mine and my other responsibilities. But sometimes it may work. And for other members of council, the Wednesday midday may actually work. So perhaps what we can do is reach out to them and express that we do still have an interest in participating, just to keep us in the loop regarding schedules. And then perhaps between the 7 of us, we can have some representation at the meetings. I just wanted to put that out there.
Absolutely. Fair point. Councillor Wallace.
Yes, through the mayor, I sat on that committee and have sat on that committee since its conception. I don't want it to be, this is a public meeting. I just want to say that the work that the Human Dignity Coalition has done has been extensive, and they've held some pretty good workshops and connected to seniors and our youth and have done a lot. So I just, want to, give my thanks to the work that's been done on that committee. And I think Wendy, who is the chair of that committee, is they're having some conflicts with, because there's a lot of agencies that sit on that committee as well. So they're having a bit of a struggle with scheduling. So I think they've been very grateful that the city has sat on it for as long as they have.
Absolutely. And certainly once all that sort of stuff gets resolved, we'd be happy to be back there. So awesome. Any other questions or comments? So I am seeing none. So I will call the question on these appointments. All those in favor? Is there any opposed? So that's carried unanimously, and that brings us to the end of this meeting. So I will move that the meeting adjourn, and it will be seconded by Councillor Mack. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? So that's carried unanimously, and I hope everybody has an excellent evening. Thank you so much. Bye for now.